Greetings and welcome to episode 42 of the Sustaining the Herd podcast, brought to you by Settje Agri-Services and Engineering of Raymond, Nebraska. I'm your host, Andrew Wadle, and I'm joined in the studio with my co-host, Brock Vitek.
Hey there, Andrew.
Morning, Brock. So just wanted to welcome back our past listeners. We really appreciate your feedback and giving us insights as far as where we take the podcast from here and episode ideas and whatnot. We really appreciate you joining us. And for our new listeners, just to give you a little bit of insight about what Sustaining the Herd is all about, well, at Settje Agri-Services, we kind of look at sustainability in three different ways. Three different legs of the stool, or you can pick your euphemism, however you want to look at it. But so the first is, well, protecting the air and the water. What can we be doing in agriculture, particularly animal agriculture, to keep contaminants out of the air that we breathe and the water that we drink? That's usually the part of sustainability most people would tend to think about. Another part of sustainability that we talk about an awful lot is resource efficiency, doing more with less. That's a huge part of sustainability, maximizing our outputs for each unit of input. And then the last part is kind of like the part of sustainability that kind of goes overlooked, and that is sustainability of businesses. And having strong agribusinesses, and that means farms, feedlots, dairies, growers. These businesses need to be strong in order to be sustainable, so that farmers can continue to do all the wonderful things that they do when it comes to feeding and clothing and really fueling the world. And so overall, Brock and I talk about it all the time, that agriculture is the greatest recycling system and the greatest example of sustainability I think the planet knows. Wouldn't you say, Brock?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so again, for all of our new listeners, this really cuts through to everybody. So this is going to be our Sustaining the Herd year in review. And what's really cool about the year in review is you can listen to this episode, and we're going to touch on just about everything that we talked about. And now you can go back and listen to past episodes and kind of get a flavor, or dig deeper into each of these subjects that we're going to kind of hit on. And of course, we're going to reach out and say thank you to all of our guests, because we've got some absolutely high-powered guests, and we'll continue to get more in the future. But really, it's our listeners and our guests that make it really possible. And then also my co-host. I've got the greatest co-host anybody could ever ask for.
Likewise.
Well, thank you, Brock.
It's a lot of fun.
So, Brock, why don't you kick us off on our year in review?
Yeah, thanks for getting us kicked off here, Andrew. Yeah, so, in preparing for this episode today, we were talking about how, our episodes can perhaps be categorized into several buckets. And one that I would love to start with would be producers. We didn't have a lot of agricultural producers on this year, but we certainly had a few. And the one I'd like to start off with is the one and only Mr. John Schroeder of Dotterer Feedlot in Cozad, Nebraska. We had a lot of fun having John on for the second and third episodes in the season. And I should actually use the correct episode numbers. It would have been episodes 20 and 21, part 1 and 2 of cattle feeding. And, John just did a great job of putting it in layman's terms. What is cattle feeding? What is a feedlot? How does this fit into the beef supply chain? Where's it? What role does it play in getting a steak on a consumer's plate in town? And it was just a lot of fun to talk to John about that. And then in part 2, digging a little deeper into all the different things that happen at a feedlot and talking about some of the challenges that they're facing, how they address those, and just where the industry might be going in general. So it was a lot of fun to talk to John there. And then we followed up several episodes later back in April with episode 26 with Andy Fabian, talking about sustainable crop production and global ag trade.
Yeah, people don't usually think about West Central Pennsylvania as being a crop production mecca, but boy, they're a big operation out there. Who, in addition to growing crops, operate a soybean processing facility.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to recap just a little bit the story of how we got Andy on the show. I just love this story. It's always fun to talk about. So, Andrew, I think you were you were traveling home from Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
I think you'd been out here with us that week, and you were headed back home through the Pittsburgh airport, headed home to Pennsylvania, and you met this man named Andy Fabian on a train at the airport, right?
That's right. Yep. And he said, "You're one of those sustaining the herd guys," and sure enough, he was a listener. So Andy was a great guest, and there's a couple things that really stood out to me with talking to Andy was I was totally fascinated by crop spraying, and how. In days gone by, if you're going to spray, you spray the field from end to end, or as they do in that part of the world, hedgerow to hedgerow, whether there were weeds there or not on that piece of ground, they would spray for it. Where now Andy is using these technologies where with artificial intelligence, that's going to weave in and out of here quite a bit, and how they spray only where there's a weed, weed. And so you talk about, protecting the air and the water, keeping the pesticides, minimizing pesticide use. We're talking about doing more with less. This is like a classic example of sustainability.
Yeah, it really is. And I think Andy did a great job of laying that out. And I appreciate how he also got into global ag trade, speaking from his experience as a former, I believe he was on the Pennsylvania soybean board.
U.S. soybean board.
U.S. soybean board, and able to talk about how it really is a global ag market, and how a producer in a place like Pennsylvania or Nebraska or anywhere else is part of that, and just talking about sustainable food production around the world too.
Yeah.
So we love our producer guests and look forward to having more of them on coming up in season 3, don't we?
Yeah, that's what we're going to shoot for. Get some more producers, because they really tell their story. They tell the sustainability story the best because they're doing it.
They're living it every day.
Yeah. So another bucket of our episodes, I kind of refer to it as the softer side of sustainability, and that softer side meaning the things you can't really quantify, but yet it's the things that's really, really important. And that's kind of like the third leg of the sustainability stool. And so we had a couple episodes that weaved into the softer side of sustainability, and the one that I think was incredibly impactful, and I personally did a lot of thinking about it, was Katie Dotterer talking about Hispanic labor and agriculture, and just how important Hispanic labor is to everything that we do, and how and how it's important to treat them right. It's just the right thing to do.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to have Katie be our first guest of the season, right, coming out that just a week into January of this year. And just the work that she's doing in the industry, not only raising awareness of the importance of being mindful of cultural differences, but the work she's doing to teach English to these Spanish-speaking laborers, and teaching Spanish to English-speaking managers and farm owners. I think she really is bridging that cultural divide, and the industry is stronger because of that.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about the producer episodes. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Katie grew up on a dairy farm in Pennsylvania.
That's right.
And had her own farm for a while. So even though she may not actively be a livestock producer, she certainly has been one, and that is part of who she is. So I think she brings a really unique perspective to the work she's doing to promote and improve Hispanic labor and agriculture. Just a really well-rounded individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that really stuck out in the Katie Dotterer episode was, and this is even a little bit uncomfortable to say, and certainly not quote unquote politically correct, and that is, you never say, I've got Mexicans, when it comes to your labor force. And it's even a little bit uncomfortable for me to say. Yeah. I've said it. I've heard people say it with no malice. It's just what people say. And so it's just not right. And so it's a matter of being a bit empathetic to to where these people are coming from and how important they are, and that they're great people.
Yeah, I think Katie really delves into the tough conversations in a tactful, graceful way that makes some progress.
Yeah.
So we were glad to have her on.
Yeah. And then another thing that's kind of a softer side. We talked to Doug Stanton about verifying sustainability. It's everybody. It's a buzzword. Organic and this certified, that certified. Natural.
What's that mean?
It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do it, and our producers are doing. But then it's another thing to verify it, and so that you can have confidence when you buy your organic or this or that it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was fun because I attended one day of the Red Angus Association convention here in Lincoln, and Doug was a speaker. I can't remember if he was either during or after, if he was a lunch keynote or if he spoke right after lunch. And then at the end of the program, I caught him in the hallway and said, "Hey, I really enjoyed your talk today. Would you be interested in being a podcast guest in the future?" So, sometimes we just run into people when we're out and about, and Andy Fabin's a good example of that, and Doug's another one. And I'm so glad that we were able to have him on because Doug and his team are doing some really, really important work. And something I like about them is their company is literally called Where Food Comes From. That is their name, and that's exactly what they do. They help the world know where their food comes from.
And that would be episode number 30. And speaking of people that Brock runs into, Brock ran into the FBI.
I did.
Brock ran into the FBI, and it was not because he was doing something he shouldn't be, but Brock had...
Thanks for clearing that
up. So Brock happened to encounter a bona fide FBI agent by the name of Gene Cowell out of the FBI's Omaha branch. And again, kind of the softer side of sustainability is the FBI and what they do to combat threats. And of course, what we're particularly interested in is threats to agriculture. And I found it fascinating the things that they have on their radar. And that was episode number 32. And particularly as it relates to artificial intelligence, which is really a part of technology and sustainability. We'll get a little bit more into that. But we are super, super thankful to have the Gene Cowells of the world out there, fortifying and helping agriculture, continue to do what we do in a safe manner, protecting us from threats.
Yeah, I feel like people wouldn't normally think about the FBI and the ag industry like being in the same sentence. It just doesn't seem to go together. But when you dig into it a little more and start to think about it, they definitely go together, because the ag industry, like almost every other industry, depends so much on technology and the internet. And, I thinking back the last 3-4 years, there have been a couple instances where packing plants have had cyber attacks from foreign adversaries and had to shut down. That literally cripples the food supply chain here in the United States. Or what about all the technology that someone like John Schroeder shared about in his feedlot? What if a feedlot had a cyber attack?
Or Randy Fabin sprayers,
Yeah, what if his sprayers had a cyber attack? Or what if a crop or livestock disease was introduced? We need to go after those people to make sure it doesn't happen again. So good folks like Agent Cowell and his team are working hard to protect the U.S. ag industry from threats.
And
it should also be noted, I have not jaywalked since meeting Gene, because he has my email address, my address, everything. He knows where I am now. So I've been on my best behavior since then. We're going to get that on record.
He probably took DNA samples of you. You didn't even know it, Brock. But
I've been behaving very well since getting to know the FBI, because they know who I am and how to get a hold of me now.
Yeah, and it's
as if they didn't before.
And it's also really cool that Gene made us aware that he has been to feedlots, and so it's not just he's doing internet searches on threats and whatnot, but he's been on a feed yard to see what it's all about and the vastness and just where the threats or risks are.
something cool for us is he's been to a feedlot that our company has built, so that makes it even more fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, talking about some of the softer side, and it should be noted these aren't soft topics by any means. These were heavy hitting episodes, but Andrew said it well. The softer side that's harder to quantify. Another one that was a lot of fun was artificial intelligence in agriculture with Dan Curtis. And this was a unique episode in a couple of ways. One, we typically record virtually because I'm in Nebraska, Andrew's in Pennsylvania most of the time, and our guests are from around the country. Well, I recorded on location at an Ag Tech conference here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and my first solo episode. Usually Andrew and I are both on here, so hopefully I held the fort down all right in your absence.
Absolutely,
there.
Brock.
But
sure did.
Thank you. Was able to catch Dan. He was a keynote speaker at this Ag Tech conference, and boy, was that a great conversation, talking about his experience working with large companies like Bayer and Monsanto and plant genetics and how AI has been applied there, and now what he's doing with a company called Pairwise with gene editing and just really using AI to accelerate the rate of innovation in crop production. And we got into a whole lot of other things related to AI, but Dan's really a forward thinker, and I think that came through in the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great episode, and boy, AI is a great segue into, I'll say, another bucket of our podcast episodes, and that is, we talked a lot about technology, because technology cuts, all the three legs on the stool of sustainability. It's there for all of them, and one that really stuck out was Jacob Hansen of ALA Engineering, and the work that they are doing with automated feed trucks. And so you can imagine, if you have an autonomous feed truck driving around a feedlot or a dairy, the amount of artificial intelligence that goes into making that happen. It is absolutely remarkable, and
it really is.
And so these self-driving feed trucks I just found absolutely amazing, because of the fact of what it does in terms of labor and reducing the need for labor. But the part that you would that I totally didn't expect was how it feeds better. There's a potential for an automated feed truck to feed better than a human, because it puts just the right amount in just the right spot at just the right time, where it doesn't always happen with when you have the human interface. And so that is something that we are going to see more and more, and I'm sure we'll come back and have it on other episodes. But whether it's feeding cattle, pushing up feed, scraping manure, a lot of these things, in 10 years, Brock, it's going to be passé, but it's all starting now.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Another note on Jacob and his team at ALA Engineering, what I really appreciate about them is they're not only talking about doing this or just working like in the shop or in a lab, they're actually doing it. They have prototypes of their self-driving feed trucks out on a few feedlots, actually feeding cattle every single day. This is real stuff. It's not just a concept. They're on the pathway to commercialization as we speak.
Yeah. And
I think that's great. That's going to take the industry by storm. That's my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was really cool. Another bit of technology and innovation that we talked about quite a bit was in episode number, episode number 23, which
I was thinking of the same one.
Which was, we talked to the boys over at Cummins. Cummins.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, Cummins was really interesting because we talk a lot about anaerobic digestion. Brock and I work a lot in anaerobic digestion, all day long, and it's one thing to be making all this homegrown energy, this methane gas, but it's another thing. It's only really worth making it if you've got a place to go with it. And Cummins has done tremendous work in really pioneering truck engines that can be fueled by natural gas. And they've made tremendous strides to really match the demand or the requirements, so that these engines can perform on par with diesel equivalents.
Yeah, and they're doing that now. I recall talking with David King and Tom Quimby. You know, they said, I believe it was a 9-liter engine is what was around for a long time with natural gas, and just wasn't performing as well as a diesel engine. It was underpowered. But now Cummins has their X15N. That's a 15-liter natural gas fueled engine. For the most part, I think the same block even as their 15-liter diesel, and this thing's keeping right up with the diesel engine. It's really an equivalent rather than a lesser alternative. And I pun intended here. It's really driving demand for renewable natural gas. Yeah, I need a button
That's
with
right.
the crowd roaring or something here.
Drum roll.
I really think it is driving demand for RNG in the transportation market, though, and really hope to see that continue to take place as fleets adopt more and more natural gas engines in their trucks. Just seems like a good direction to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Just other things in terms of technology, and maybe it's not so much technology, but just new developments when it comes to sustainability and production. We talk a lot about roller compacted concrete as a pen surface.
Yeah, we do.
In feed yards. It really unlocks the door to anaerobic digestion. It improves cattle health and gains and whatnot. And we talked a lot about that, and another subject where we're not through talking about it because it's really becoming all the rage, so to speak.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, Andrew. If natural gas engines are driving demand for RNG, does that mean that roller compacted concrete is paving the way for anaerobic digestion?
Rocky, you're absolutely on a roll today. Nothing like a little bit of sustainability humor.
Yeah, there you go. On a roller compacted concrete. Yeah, I'll stop the bad humor here. Just had to throw that one in there. Yeah. I really enjoyed that episode, and as you alluded to a little bit ago, that's stuff that we are living every single day. I think the two of us spend at least 90% of our time on things related to feedlot anaerobic digestion and roller compacted concrete every day of the week. So it's something we get excited to talk about because we're living it a lot. And it really has changed the game to open this new sector of the anaerobic digestion market, because the feedlot market is relatively untapped as compared to something like an industry like dairy, where I'd say every door has been knocked on for the most part by a developer, and projects have been looked into, if not built. So excited to see what happens there with anaerobic digestion, and also excited to see feedlots continue to innovate and improve their practices over time. And RCC's a fantastic example of that.
Yep, and that was episode number 22. In case you folks want to go back and take a look at that.
Yes, it was.
And so anaerobic digestion and roller compacted concrete. Roller compacted concrete leads to anaerobic digestion has been something that we work on really all the time, and of course biogas is a really positive attribute of what's produced by anaerobic digestion and the monetizable part of anaerobic digestion. We also, in the process of anaerobically digesting feedlot manure, we've also maybe created a bit of a challenge, haven't we, Brock?
Sometimes more than a bit of a challenge, yes. Nutrient management challenge.
Yeah.
That's another bucket I think we could jump into here.
Yeah.
We've had quite a few episodes, at least a handful, talking about various aspects of nutrient management. And one that I think would be great to start with would be episode 35 that came out on August 20th, called Nutrient Management, the Achilles Heel of Feedlot Digestion Projects. And maybe that's a bold claim or a hot take, calling it the Achilles heel, but I think that most of our days since then would support that statement. It really is a challenge, and we, alongside many others, are working hard to address it, but it remains a challenge nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important enough and heavy enough that we actually talked about 2 episodes in a row, 35 and 36. And so, so you just to frame this a little bit more, so you can imagine a feedlot and conventional dirt pens, and the manure that's collected is sold or given away to local crop farmers, and this dry manure is relatively easy to haul away and haul far distances, and it's really a feedlot's social license to exist, with all their neighbors, and then
it's currency.
In so many ways, and then so now here comes an anaerobic digester, and now instead of having a nice dry product that can be hauled for miles, now there's potential that you have a slurry. And so, how many people that are accustomed to handling feedlot manure, are also set up to handle slurry? And, that is a liquid for the...
And millions of gallons of it.
Millions and millions of gallons. So it's really a challenge. So now that in the process of feeding cattle or dairy cows, we've basically put the manure together, so to speak, by the ration and the cows and the cattle doing their thing. But now, how do we take these nutrients? How do we take the manure apart? That's really what we're looking to do: is take the manure apart back to its most basic components, that being water, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. How do we take the manure apart again? That's what nutrient separation is all about, and the demand for this in the future is going to be immense.
Yeah, it really is. And we cannot stress the importance of this enough, because producers, for the most part, really want to be good stewards of the land and the resources that are entrusted to their care, and animals as well. And it's not environmentally responsible in order to, keep the air and the water clean to just go and put as much manure as you possibly can on an acre of land. It takes a certain amount of acres to manage a certain amount of nutrients. So getting those nutrients, those parts of the manure, separated out into their constituent components is important, so we can manage those effectively to be good stewards of the environment, and also produce crops in the most efficient way possible, so we can keep feeding more animals.
That's right. Yep, that is right. And so with that, talking about applying manure in an environmentally sound and friendly way, we had a great conversation with Dr. Amy Schmidt from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. Dr. Amy Schmidt, otherwise known as the Manure Lady, self-professed.
Quite a title.
She's Manure Lady.
Quite a title.
We didn't give her that name. She gave herself that name, just to be clear. So it is quite a title. And it was really great to hear Dr. Schmidt's perspective of nutrient management in feed yards, and talking about really where we are today, which is a better place than what we were, at one point in time. That is appreciating the value of manure nutrients. And she also talked about kind of like the gains, the places where we need to still be going. We're not perfect, but we're getting better all the time at appreciating the value of manure nutrients and their potential role as a contaminant.
Yeah, and this might dip a little into the softer side bucket, as we've named it. But first of all, talking to Dr. Amy Schmidt was great. She was very insightful. But I'd like to point out the role she's in. Amy works at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln as a professor of animal manure management. She's in the biological systems and engineering department, and she is an extension agricultural engineer. And Andrew, I know your professional pedigree kind of stems from that, and your program with your graduate advisor being an extension ag engineer, right? So you know all about that. But I would just love to stress how important it is to have people like Amy in roles like the one she's in, working with producers, because she's not only doing academic research, but she's working with producers to understand the challenges and problems they're facing, and then using that as a basis for the research she's doing to help solve those problems for those producers, really getting at the root of the the mission of a land-grant university. So I'm so grateful as a citizen and taxpayer in a state like Nebraska that folks like Amy are doing what they're doing.
Yeah, it's university research isn't all about test tubes and petri dishes. They have their place.
It's sure
for
not.
sure. But yeah, the applied research that Dr. Schmidt does, and then disseminating the research out to the producers, that is what, like as Brock said, that's what the land grant mission is really, really all about. And and that was in episode number 41.
The previous episode before this one that you're listening to right now.
That's right.
There's another university-related episode I'd love to talk about. It was a blast, and that was with Win Kogel, your old boss.
Yeah, my old boss
back in New Jersey.
Yeah, that's right. And so what we Brock and I kind of joke about how because this sustaining the herd is still kind of so new, although we're 2 seasons into it. Almost every episode is a first,
It is.
And so when Kogel was definitely a first in that he was not associated with animal agriculture at all. But sustainability isn't limited to only animal agriculture. When Kogel is a palmologist, and that is a fruit specialist. And it was just really interesting to hear how fruit is produced and the strides that have been made to make fruit production more sustainable, and how fruit has changed to match what society wants.
I learned so much about fruit production in that hour-long conversation with Wynn than I ever thought I would. Just hearing about the work that's being done to be as judicious as possible with pesticide usage, and how GMOs really do play an important role in fruit production. And I know GMOs are a hot topic, something we don't need to wade too far into right now probably, but a lot of the fruit we eat is GMO, and it's a big part of the industry. And no matter what side of the fence a person's on that topic, it's something we do need to be talking about. And finally, I enjoyed hearing Wynn's perspective on the future of U.S. fruit production, as he talked about he really sees high-density orchards being the direction things are going, not only in the U.S., but around the world. And you think about a high-density orchard and resource efficiency and doing more with less, and he just hit on all those pillars of sustainability, and from a different angle than we're used to as some livestock guys here.
Yep, that's right. And speaking of doing more with less, we had Dr. Jessica Sperber from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and she talked about a lot of the same concepts, but just as it relates to beef production, right? Doing more with less and making beef production more sustainable.
Yeah, I enjoyed how Jessica talked about some data from the USDA slaughter data, talking about how cattle are yield grading, and how as cattle have gotten bigger, there can be more fat on the carcass, and just ways that we have gotten more efficient, but also some opportunities to improve. And she was really backing up what she was saying with data, and that just made for a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how she works with producers as a feedlot extension specialist as well. Extension comes up once again. That's with Wynn, that's with Amy, that's with Jessica, really working with producers and not just being in test tubes and petri dishes, even though that stuff's important too.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Sperber was in episode number 38.
That's correct. Well, Andrew, we've talked about a lot of episodes here. I know we didn't hit them all. Want to have it on the record that we appreciate all of our guests and have enjoyed every single episode of season 2, and just couldn't fit discussing all of them into this episode here today. But I think we've highlighted quite a few, and
absolutely, I
encourage all of our listeners to go back and listen to these episodes and the others. There's something to learn and gain from each and every one of them. So as we put a bow on season 2, maybe that's appropriate since Christmas is coming up, and look ahead to season 3 in the new year, what are we excited for in season 3? What might stay the same? What might change? What do we think?
Well, I think people really like to hear from producers, and
They do.
It's tough to get producer guests. If you're a producer and you're listening and you'd like to be a guest, by all means, reach out to us. But people like to hear from producers, as do we, because they're the ones that are really, really making it happen. So I'd like to think we can have. We're gonna get some more producers in 2026. That's amazing to say 2026, but that's really where we're heading. The other thing I think we'll continue to talk more about, because it is just it's the world that we live in. We, as in the Settje world that we live in, based on the project work that we're doing, is the nutrient management, nutrient separation, and really it's something that the industry, even if we're not talking about anaerobic digestion, nutrient separation is nutrient management is something that we need to be talking about more and more. And that it's nutrient management is really it's just a huge mass balance in that we should be putting on the nutrients that the crops are actually using.
Yeah, and I'm excited to dig more into that, because while it has come up, I'd say as a result of anaerobic digestion, it's been something that has been needing to be addressed in the industry for quite a long time. And I think anaerobic digestion is just bringing it to light in a bigger way. So I'm excited to see where we go with that. And you mentioned having more producers on. I think we'll try to have a more diverse group of producers as well. And by diverse, I mean, different species of livestock, different types of crop production, and just really get some unique perspectives from producers on the show.
Maybe even fruit growers. Wouldn't that be interesting?
I'll bet Wynn could help us find some of those.
Probably could.
And finally, before we wrap it up, one more thing I'm looking forward to in season 3 is that hopefully our listeners enjoy this as much as we do. We'll have more episodes with just the two of us, taking some deeper dives on topics like we have many times here in season 2. That'll stick around as well.
Yep. And boy, Brock and I sure are grateful again for you, our listeners. We're just doing a little bit of internet sleuthing around. We came to the realization that only about 8% of podcasts make it to the 50th episode. We're not there yet, okay? We're not there yet. This is only 42, but only about 8% make it to 50. But we're going to get there. There's no question about it. And,
darn right we are.
And you folks, the encouragement we get and the suggestions for episodes we get, that's really what kind of keeps it moving along.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely does. So with that, thank you once again to all of our listeners. You really, and to our guests, you all make this show what it is, and it wouldn't exist without you all. So we're putting a bow on season 2, and we're looking forward to season 3. We'll be back with you again in mid-January to kick off season 3. Until then, thanks for joining the herd today.